The Space God Memoirs. Season 3, Episode 15. I stood in the midst of the solar heart chamber. At its center, a golden orb hovered, suspended in the air between two platinum pillars. Aychuck energy twisted and spun, as golden symbols projected across the walls. Behind me, the only exit flashed with red alarm lights, the sounds of clattering footfalls echoing down the hallway. All the facility's Nentael guards would soon be here to arrest me. The defenses were activated, the alarms raised. If I didn't act quick, I'd be pretty scragged. I looked at the broken remains of Suvar's redirect module, shattered on the ground, then to the twist blade still in my hands. I wondered just what I was planning on doing with it. I supposed I could fight my way out. Maybe I'd be good enough to take down all the guardians in the artificial sun, but what then? That would make me an enemy to the Nyar. And even though I had my reservations about the group, I wasn't ready to go rogue just yet. One peek down that hallway and I could already see the first of the Nentael rushing down it. Whatever Suvar's plan with his device had been, it had failed. But the thing had still scragged me over with its screech, alerting the whole place. I needed to do something. Per the blueprint of this facility, this chamber bordered the outside of the sun. The only thing between myself and sweet freedom were 3 feet of photon emitters, some circuitry, and a solid steel wall. I thrust my twist blade straight down, feeling the weapon's liquid metal begin to tear through the layers of steel and wires beneath. It worked. With enough time, I'd be able to hack a hole through the floor and get out. But scrag it, I didn't have enough time. In seconds, the Nentael would deactivate the barriers and come through. They hadn't identified me yet, but they would. And then I'd have no choice but to fight or get apprehended. I glanced down at my blade, its semi-liquid surface looking almost afire as it reflected the light spinning about the chamber. That sight triggered an association. Bakibra, battling the hordes of the Veer with a blade of light, shining, resplendent, superheated. That was one of her latent gifts. I didn't have the training for it, but something deep inside told me that I didn't need the training. After all, I'd been inside Bakibra's mind as she activated the light sword technique. I had experienced firsthand how she'd done it. Soul-linked as we'd been, I had pretty much done it myself. It was easy. As easy as directing all the loose atra in this chamber into my hands, then willing it from my hands to the blade, imagining it covering the weapon in a halo of solid light. My hands began to grow hot, surging with energy. I called up the visualization for the virtue of bravery, setting myself into a warrior's mind, focused, sharp, without doubts. With a grunt, I released the atra into the blade, and it turned on, as if the blade itself were made of light. With a rapid motion, I thrust downward, spinning it in a circle around me as I cleaved through solid metal like it was Dugga butter. The floor gave way beneath me as I fell, sounds of crashing metal ringing through my ears as the light of my plasma blade flashed brilliantly. In an instant, I tumbled through the remainder of the fortress, and my vision flared with an even brighter light. The photon emitters, shining in their midday brilliance. I could see the city spreading below me. Towers, parks, and buildings growing closer by the second. As the wind rushed through my hair and my stomach spun, I closed my eyes, ignoring the sensation of falling as best I could. Tapping into my remaining atra, I let it spread around my body, altering my gravitational field. Immediately I felt lighter, falling a bit slower. I opened my eyes to rapidly approaching ground, a gardened park below. In one quick motion, I put my hands to my waist, pulled out my miniaturized hover disc, and expanded it. Stepping on, I felt a jolt as the inertia of the fall conflicted with the disc's stabilizing field. It wobbled, nearly colliding with a nearby tower, but I managed to gain control of it just in time. Soon I was coasting horizontally, mere yards above the cityscape. I was dizzy, sweaty, a bit bruised, but alive. Minutes later, I sat on the rim of a flat roof, looking out towards the temple district of the city, my view dominated by the terraced virtue pyramid. My heart rate was starting to slow, the sweat on my skin drying in the winds, but my thoughts were still aflutter. I glanced up at that artificial sun, looking nearly like the real thing from this angle. Not more than 10 minutes ago I had been inside that thing. I had broken into the solar heart, the center of Aychuck production on the planetoid, and I'd almost done something really, really dumb. I had been about to put that crazy device directly on the solar heart, all at the behest of a person who probably didn't even exist. Ninda was just a hologram, a creation of a lonely Nayar who just might have been on the cusp of going insane. Maybe Suvar was insane, I figured, as I stood up and stretched out my limbs. He certainly fit the profile. I wasn't entirely sure what that device of his was supposed to do to the solar heart, but I knew it wasn't anything good. In the parks and streets below, people walked, lingered, and sat, going about their lives. In the nearby skies, Nayars zipped by on their hover discs, off to their labors or their training. A good portion of the people I saw were actually holograms, designed to fill out the city, to mask an otherwise lonely and sparsely populated place. Nobody had noticed that Ninda wasn't an actual person. It was no wonder. Just another one of the millions of simulated folks here, designed by her creator to mimic the girl he loved, lost back on their homeworld. Of course, with most Sims you could tell. The Monadic network displayed them as programs, but Ninda hadn't had an AI designation, and it had all the details a proper Nayar should have, at least when I'd looked at her. But so did the holographic Andarash, who had tried to lead me into a trap. Maybe Suvar could hack the monad, or at least people's perceptions of it. I supposed I could still talk to the guy. As I stepped back from the roof's edge, I reached out to Suvar through the monad. There was a sense of annoyance, anger, and frustration. "Leave me alone, Keph," returned his thoughts. And then I was blocked, cut off from any glimpse of his psyche. From the fading vestiges of my link with Suvar, a dread was festering in my gut. There had been desperation in his mind, like someone on the verge of snapping. I could sense it. He was going to do something rash. But what? I stepped back onto my hover disc and took a quick jaunt to ground level, landing next to a square pool of blue water, fed by 2 statue fountains of aquatic beasts that continuously poured water into it through their mouths. Nearby, various real and holographic people came and went from the entrances of several buildings. None gave me a moment of attention. I paced back and forth in front of the pool for several minutes. Oh, the local bardo. When last I'd seen Suvar and Ninda, they'd said that Ninda was investigating the bardo. But there probably wasn't even a Ninda. So was Suvar going there himself? I began to wonder what he was even doing within, among the discorporated and the Aychuck channels. But it was clear. He was an Aychuck technologist, and that's where the Aychuck was. Moreover, it was in that etheric realm that Archon Lumavari had access to all the controls for the entire facility, or should have if he wasn't incapacitated. Zap bang, I realized it. That's the only way a newbie level 1 could have the ability to do all those crazy stunts, if they had direct access to all the tech via the bardo. The moat in the Archon's eye, that had to have something to do with it all. Maybe it was a way to divert control from him. Of course, that was all speculation. I washed that line of thought away. I had to act. The only way most of us were able to access the bardo directly was through the control chairs in our personal quarters. And last I'd looked, Suvar had been sitting in his. It was easy enough to find Suvar's personal quarters in the monad, publicly listed along with the other Nayar here. It was only a few blocks from my own. A quick flight by hover disc. I got on my disc and coasted across the skies, an unsurprising tightness in my gut as I flew. I knew this was going to be a confrontation, and had a sneaking suspicion that it wouldn't end well. Suvar's personal quarters weren't far. Just like mine, the entrance was located in one of the high-rise apartment buildings, a white structure of stucco and steel that went up 15 stories. Suvar's room was at the top, a balcony and landing area just outside his door. I landed, miniaturized my disc, and approached the entrance. It opened at a thought, revealing the sparse quarters beyond, where a double cot and meditation area lay at the bottom of an inset kiva. On the upper floor, not more than 20 feet from where I stood, was a chair, Suvar's control chair, just like the one in my quarters. He sat with his back straight, his hands pressed firmly into the armrests. Suvar gave an annoyed growl as I entered. Go away, Keph, I said, to leave me alone. Come on, Suvar. There's obviously something going on with you. We need to discuss this. There's nothing more to discuss. You invaded my thoughts. And they were pretty scragged up thoughts. But not nearly as scragged as your supposed girlfriend trying to get me to place your weird device in the solar heart. Speaking of which, I guess Ninda's not home. Or maybe you forgot to turn her hologram on. I admit, I just couldn't resist throwing a bit of snark in there. He barked loudly, rage building in his eyes. Whatever, I responded. I saw you building her in your lab. He looked at me, his tail lowered. Fine, I admit it. I did create a simulation of Ninda. I was lonely. In those years of just being here, going through the motions of life, I needed someone, if just to pretend like I had her back. His eyes were watery. I reached out a hand to comfort Suvar. Should I be comforting him? He grabbed my hand with his own, pushing it away. But she did come back. It was years since I had ascended. Another hero cycle had come and gone, and Ninda passed her trials. 2 years ago, she came to Kucingkecil, stronger than I had ever remembered her, our bond greater than ever. An image appeared in my mind's eye. Suvar's early years on Kucingkecil, laboring away at his duties, alone, his only companion a hologram, his existence feeling more numb as the days faded into years. He too might have faded away like that, as an exalted part of a vast celestial machine, a higher being with only a singular purpose. But one day he saw her, stepping out from the cloning lab, her puffy orange coat unmistakable, her green eyes and twitchy nose even more so. There was something different about her, though, at least to me. This Ninda was stronger, a certain fiery gleam in her eyes that had never been there before, more sly, more knowing, less innocent than the girl Suvar had left behind on Garib. I told you we'd meet again, chirped Ninda in his memories. She had finally made it. The next hero cycle had come, and Ninda had graduated. Returning to the present moment, to me and Suvar, I paused, about to speak, but holding back. I wondered if I had scragged up, hadn't looked deep enough. But there really was something fishy going on with Ninda, particularly that last encounter, trying to manipulate me into getting that dumb machine into the solar heart chamber. I shook my head, about to say something. Suvar let out a soft, guttural growl. Hey, don't go all jav-gagger on me, man, I began. You gotta admit I had my reason to be suspicious. From the start, the both of you have been super mysterious. I had to take a peek, make sure you were the good guys, right? I tossed up a big fake grin. No, Keph, Suvar said, looking up at me with eyes wide, tightening his jaw. You're just like the others, deceitful, sneaking into my mind and looking for secrets. But you're the one hiding the secrets with that stealth of yours. I ain't hiding scrag. Another lie. Ninda tells me you were raised up from a Vaer world, barely even trained in the virtues. Before that, nobody even knows where you came from. You're a master of stealth, hiding things inside your mind while sneaking into other people's. And how would Ninda know any of that? She has her ways. Yeah? Like invading people's minds, maybe? He looked away, releasing a huff. That's it, ain't it? I said. Been that way from the start. You suddenly show up as these freaky attacks are happening, have all these abilities a rank 1 shouldn't even know, and have been acting shady as Scrag the whole time. I took a few steps towards where Suvar sat in his control chair. He was tensing up. My guess is this. You're the thief. I got too close to your little operation. You decided to first attack me, and when that didn't work out, you tried to kiss up to me, then get me to do your dirty work. Yes, I did it. We both did. Me and Ninda. But we're not the corrupt ones here. They are. They? Who's they? The Nyar. The Elders. The Overseers. The Archons. The Council. They're the ones oppressing countless star systems, running their farm worlds and taking the energy of trillions of people. You snuck into my memories. You saw what they've been doing to Garib this whole time. The same sort of underhanded shit they did to your world. Scrag it, Suvar. I get it. It sucks. But this ain't the time to be debating galactic politics. No. He slammed his furry fist against the chair. Ninda said you'd be able to see things our way. That you'd understand. She said you're not like the rest of them, programmed and subservient. Maybe she was wrong. What's there to understand? I mean, I may not be a paragon of virtue, but stealing is stealing. And discorporating your mentor, Tabalnak, is pretty evil where I come from. I didn't kill him. He looked at me with genuine anger. So who did? I don't know. And we really didn't steal anything. We just took some of the Atra that they're siphoning into the offstream and are using it for something better. Better? What do you mean? It's going to a good cause. There's a plan in place. Bigger than me and Ninda. That'll soon make changes. Make this galaxy a decent place again. If you would just listen to her and place my redirect module in the solar heart, things would be moving along smoothly. Spit it out, Suvar. Give me some details. He shook his head. Ninda's the one with all the plans. She knows some people, good people, and says she wants to talk to you directly. He smiled, his eyes alight. Yeah, I think Ninda knows all of Jack Scrag, I replied, stopping short of spitting. Truth is, you may say that she came back and ascended after you made a hologram of her, but I don't buy it. Way too convenient. Way too suspicious. Ninda ain't even here. His jaw opened, Suvar shaking his head. No, she's real. She's just off doing some investigations in the Bardo. Nope, you're done. I'm not gonna go off and meet with your sim girlfriend. No, it's likely a trap. In fact, you're gonna get off that chair and come with me right now. I took another step towards his chair and reached my hand for him. Get away from me! A growl issued from between his clenched canines as an empowered thought sprung from his mind. There was a force pushing at me, a pressure across my body. I can't do that, Suvar, I said, my hand reaching for the twist blade miniaturized on my belt. The force suddenly magnified, bursting in the center of my body. I was thrust backward, towards the now open door of Suvar's quarters. From the ceiling above, thick wires sprung loose, squirming like tentacles between me and where he still sat. The floor itself was growing fluid, warping, its nanites detaching and flowing like a wave towards me, as Suvar's eyes glowed with a shimmering yellow. The pressure on me, I stepped back through the open door. It instantly slammed shut, strips of metal detaching from the nearby wall to lock around it. I pushed my hands against the door. No give. I reached out to touch it with my mind, directing it to open. As if in response, a fist-sized block of material thrust out of the nearby wall. Fast as an actual fist, it struck me square in the face. I reeled backward, a flash of pain and dizziness. From beyond, from Suvar, I could feel an intense anger, pulsing outward in repeated waves. Ugh! I grasped my throbbing head, directing a trickle of Atra into it to numb the pain, to clear my senses. I glanced back at Suvar's sealed apartment, closed shut like a tomb, and I knew I needed to get away. Whatever scragged up stuff he was doing, I wasn't gonna beat the door down and arrest him, that was for sure. I needed help, resources, a plan. I tossed my miniaturized hover disk on the ground, willing for it to expand. With a shattering sound and an electric flash, the object expanded into a jagged mess of metal and plastic, the scent of ozone emanating from it. Useless now. Broken. I was pretty sure that was Suvar's work. Just like with the door. Like the building attacking me. The whole area was shaking. The balcony I stood upon unsteady as it tilted forward. I watched as my now broken hover disc slid off the edge. I grabbed the nearby railing as I was jolted forward, steadying myself. The building was now at a 45-degree angle to the ground. I leapt, using my meager Aychuck supply to loosen gravity's grip on me as I sprung onto the next closest rooftop, a flat one with a cylindrical metal array atop it. On my mental periphery, Suvar was still screaming, a psychic surge emanating from the building behind me, filled with anger. A loud crunch from behind. Suvar's apartment building had suddenly righted itself, slamming back into its steady position. Scrag, he could do that? Before I could ponder it further, there was more movement near me. Blocks and tiles from the nearby roof, floating up into the air and hovering right in front of me. I rolled to the side, dodging a flurry of stucco and plastic tiles, shattering as they slammed into a nearby wall. I got to my feet, but immediately stepped sideways as a spike of steel shot at me from the metal array at the roof's center. One glance and I could see the whole structure warping and twisting like some flappy sea creature. Its now liquid metal reached for me like tendrils, and I made sure to keep moving. I ran to the opposite end of the rooftop and managed a long jump, landing on another nearby roof. Still, bits of buildings would reach up at me or thrust spikes in my direction, as if the whole artificial planetoid had suddenly come alive and wanted to kick my behind. I ran, swerving around concrete fists and loose bricks that tumbled my way, hearing the constant grinding and shifting noises all around. "Stop, calm the scrag down," I sent the message to Suvar, only met with a silent, simmering wrath. The pup had gone Morga-munchin' crazy. Tumbling over a solid stone block that suddenly appeared in front of me, I found myself at the edge of another rooftop, facing the looming wall of a high-rise, its roof some 100 feet above me. I paused momentarily. No way I was jumping to that far-up roof. Peeking downward, I saw the street below, lined in the trees of a small park. A few windowsills on the way down. Something slammed into the back of my knees. The block I'd just rolled over. Disoriented, I fell forward, plummeting. The gravity pulled at my insides, the street growing larger in flashes as I hurtled towards it. Despite this surprise, I kept my head, utilizing my scant Aychuck supply to slow my fall and push my body towards one of the windowsills. I managed to grab it with one hand, redirecting the inertia of my fall into my energy field and using it to bound towards the opposite wall, touching upon an archway's top 30 feet below. In seconds, I had parkoured down to one of the trees and used its trunk to shimmy to the street. I took a breather, standing up from the crouch I'd landed in. The aroma of manufactured flowery scent was in my nostrils as I looked over a small rectangular park nestled between the buildings, a geometric mosaic decorating the center of the street, lined in evenly spaced trees like the one I had landed on. This was a back street, no visible traffic. It was empty, until a being suddenly stepped through the nearby wall, 8 feet tall and lanky, wearing the building's concrete like a skin. The absorber lurched towards me. I ran, making a left down an alley, as I heard its stony footfalls crunching behind. Merging onto a wider street, I could see the movement of people in the distance. About a block away, maybe a few more in the arched entries of nearby buildings. "Help, I'm being attacked!" I shouted out, hoping the security forces would hear. As I peeked around, I realized that I hadn't actually seen a single Nentail since before my conversation with Suvar. A glance into the Monad's alert system showed me the cause. An explosion down in the processing facility, along with several absorbers attacking Nayar. Most of the facility's security had been diverted to that sector. Scrag, he was in the system deep. The absorber emerged from the alley, bulked up from taking on the local elements. I resumed my run, going towards where I saw people in the street. As I ran forward, a few of them stepped my way, their strikers drawn. Nayar come to help? No. There was only deadness in their eyes as they ran. not at the absorber, but at me, swinging their striker blades in unison. I ignored them, plowing right through their unsubstantial hologram bodies. I soon reached the next street intersection. The entrance of a meditation hall collapsed into a pile of masonry. There stood another absorber, his flesh coated in a brassy luster, blood covering its bladed hands as it stood above two freshly discorporated Nayar initiates. It swiveled its torso to face me as I got close. In the distance, past the rubble, I could see more people running, screams echoing across the streets. Flashes of light as Nayar battled what I figured must be more absorber models in the square ahead. I knew I wouldn't be of much help to them. Besides, there were folks in this station capable of taking down the absorbers easier than I could, so I dashed away, 2 of them in pursuit. I continued to run, bolstering my steps with the little remaining Atra I had in my system, the wind whooshing along as the absorbers continued to pursue, and the city hurled itself against me. I would dodge segments of buildings thrown my way, or be forced to jump as the street below me collapsed, giving way to pitfalls. Holograms of all sorts made insubstantial attacks, trying to rush or tackle me as I continued to flee, towards where I did not know. Was a single place in this planetoid safe? At last I stopped, at a dead end. The street I had been running along terminated, surrounded by tall apartments that looked out of place, like they shouldn't have been there. From behind, I could still hear the rumble of the absorbers. I looked ahead, scanning for footholds to climb up or ledges I could ascend on. The building at the end of the alley was moving, its surface rippling like liquid. The entire structure surged at me, its wall ready to swallow me whole. A rumbling sound, the scent of steel and concrete dust and burning plastic as the whole thing came down on me. I stood frozen, no time to leap out of the way. Suddenly I was pulled into the air and snatched sideways, my vision a blur as an invisible force hoisted me up by my feet and dragged me off. A huge crash resounded from where I had been. A cloud of dust and debris erupted, but I was already nearly 50 feet up, looking down on the collapsing wreck of a building that was getting farther and farther. There was a surge of Atra pulling at my ankles as I hung upside down. Then I was drawn into the open entryway of a metallic blue vessel. Z's Octa. I got my bearings, stepping to my feet within the compact, pristine ship's interior. Zirathra stood with her hands on the back of the pilot's chair, clad in a simple white flight suit. A stream of residual Atra was quickly dissipating in the air around her. "Thanks for the save," I said, brushing myself off. Then I noticed the other person, seated on the rear cot of the craft. Tabalnak. He waved his trunk at me, once more among the living. Thank you for listening to this episode of The Space God Memoirs. Space God is written, performed, and produced by A.M. Arctos. Original musical score by Alpha Colors. Various sound effects created by Industrial Strength Records Incorporated. Please support this podcast by following, rating, and sharing on your favorite social media site. For further info on Space God, its creator, and various other opinions, musings, and thoughts, go to www.spacegodmemoirs.com or follow me on Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook. If you enjoyed the Space God Memoirs, please consider supporting us by becoming a patron. Check out the Patreon link in our description to learn more.